Hello, welcome to rural Warwickshire in England, the home of Ramrods. My name's Richard Horton, I'm the CEO founder of Ramrods UK. Come inside, we'll show you what we do and how we make them. Let's look at the Ramrod range and the characteristics of each individual model. Let's start with the Classic Birch. The Classic Birch is made up of 19 individual hand-selected birch rods, each 3mm in diameter, which makes a fairly rigid rod. Next is his sister, which is the Classic Bamboo, which also 19 individually selected dowels, measuring 3mm each in diameter. With the bamboo, it's a little bit more flexible than the birch. Next is our Classic Light, which is one of the most popular rods in the Ramrod range. This consists of a birch dowel running the length of the stick. It is then surrounded by bamboo dowels. Its great attack and flexibility makes it one of the most popular rods that we sell. Over here, we have our Rockers, which is the most rigid rods that we do in the Ramrod range. It consists of 7 5mm birch dowels, all hand selected. We then have the Rocker's little brother, the Rocker Lights, which is made exactly the same as the Rockers, but these are 4mm birch dowels, still with the same rigidity and attack on the drums. Next, we have our specialist rods, which is the Foamers. The Foamers, obviously, speak for themselves, they have a foam insert, but a hardened birch handle. They're surrounded by 12 3mm dowels. So you also have the attack, but the lightness of playing. We move on to its little sister, the Foam Light, made exactly the same as the Foamer, but just a smaller diameter for people that prefer a smaller diameter stick. We have another specialist rod, the Nylon Core. As it speaks for itself, it has a nylon dowel running the length of the stick and is surrounded by 3mm bamboo. This also gives a great attack on the drums and also the cymbals as well. We have our Junior rods, which is a smaller version of the Rocker Lights, but it's just aimed at our younger and smaller players. Next up is the Multi-Rod. This has a couple of functions. You can play it rod brush type with the looser ends by moving the sound control rings, or you can have the rigidity of a stick by keeping the sound control rings at the end. We then have our Reggae Rod, which is basically the same as our Classic Bamboo, but just in reggae colours. Finally, we have our Bod Rod, which is designed for the Baram players. The consistency of it is bamboo with a birch inner, which gives the Baram players a slightly lighter feel. This is a finished article of a Classic Birch. What I'll do, I'll go through the process of how I make this rod. First, I'll select the birch. Probably the most important job in the whole of the process of making the rods. Obviously they come in packs, but the people that supply them obviously don't go through them individually. They just throw them in a bag and that's it. So what I need to do, I need to sift through to ensure that they're at the standard I would expect for ramrods. Usually this process I get rid of maybe 10 to 15% of each bag that arrives. But it just ensures that every rod that leaves this premise and goes through the quality control will be the best rod that you get. It's an easy task to do. The wood just darker. You can tell just by looking if the birch is standard or not. If you find little dark patches on, then you know right there, it's just going to snap. And there we go. So I'm happy now with the dowels that I've got left in front of me. So as we're doing the Classic Birch, I'll get rid of those, and then I need to count out 19 individual dowels, like so. These are then secured in place just by a couple of O-rings for now, just so we get the basic shape of the rod. And because of the layout with the 19 dowels, it falls into place, making that hexagon shape. The next stage, when you've got the rods in their groups, is the gluing stage. It's all done by hand, and it's the basic thing of dipping the rod into the glue, making sure that every individual dowel has glue on it. As you see there, smothered in glue. You then put the sound control ring back up to the top just to secure it in place. For now, we just put a bit of tape over the glue to hold the dowels in place. One of the benefits of hand making the rods is you can squish the rods down like so, and then all the glue, as you can see, squirts up between the gaps of the 19 dowels. So making sure that every dowel is glued in place. Now usually I let the dowels or the rods sit now for 24 to 48 hours to allow the glue to dry. But obviously for this demonstration, I'm just going to get straight on. So we just then need our individual wraps that we put around. So obviously as we're making the classic birch, we're going to use yellow for the classic birch colours. And then you can see now that it's starting to look a little bit like the finished article. I've got a board here that marks out every rod in the Ramrod range. There's different measurements for different things, but I mean, I know it looks like a load of tape everywhere, but that's, I know where the measurements go. And it's just a case of heat shrinking the handle on until it's secure. Once the handle's in place, I'd usually give it a few minutes then just to cool down, because it doesn't get very hot. But for the purpose of the video, I'll put this sheath straight on. The beauty with ramrods, and especially handmade rods, is the sheaths sometimes on the front of the rod slip off because they're not glued or attached. With ramrods, every single rod in every range gets super glued right down into the dowels and all around the stick. So there's no way that that sheath can slide up or down to ruin the rod, or like some drummers I've seen having to put gaffer tape or electric tape around and stop them moving. So after that's dried, obviously super glue, it's quite quick drying. You could try pulling that up and down, trying to get it off, but with the glue holding it all in place, it'll be impossible to get off. Okay, right, so obviously we're going to put the logo on now, just to define it as a ramrod. One of the final things we need to do is then place a cap on the top. Obviously beforehand, I've done this for the video purposes, the sellotape would have been taken off there. Obviously the dowels would have been checked, and then the glue would have been sanded down if need be. But just for the benefit of this video, obviously this rod won't be going anywhere. So I super glue the top cap. I'd usually give it a couple of minutes to get tacky, but just for the purpose of the video, it goes onto the top of the rod. And then obviously a trait with ramrods is the logo will always marry up with the ramrod wording. The unique feature with all ramrods, like we said earlier, is the beveled end to stop the splitting of the rod and to prolong the life of your rods and your skins. This is the only bit of machinery that is used in the process of making any ramrod. So as you can see, with the sanding, we just take the edges off the top just to make sure you've got a level playing field on the end tip of the rod, and then just the beveled end. It's all as simple as that. And that is a classic birch. The rest of the rods are made near enough the same way. Obviously the foamers, they have inserts, and the nylons, they have different inserts, but it's all the same process. Some are a bit longer than others. Thank you for visiting us here at Ramrods in rural England. For more information, please visit www.ramrods.co.uk. ramrods.co.uk. Thank you very much for your time.